Alright, so Apple just dropped the iPhone 16e, and I gotta be real with you, this phone is in a weird spot. So, this phone is replacing the iPhone SE 3, but it's not a budget phone anymore. At $600, it's the new cheapest iPhone that you can buy, but it's way more expensive than the previous SE models. And for that price, it's missing some pretty important features. Today, we're going to be breaking it all down, the good, the bad, and the Apple nonsense. And by the end of this, you'll know if this phone is actually worth it, or if it is just Apple trying to push you towards the iPhone 16. Alright, so let's talk about the biggest problem first, the pricing. The last two iPhone SE models were priced around $400 to $429, making them the easiest iPhones to recommend for casual users, parents, kids, or your grandma, or anyone upgrading from an old device. But now, $600, that's a $170 increase. And suddenly, it's only $200 less than the regular iPhone 16. This price shift changes everything. Instead of being the default cheap iPhone, the iPhone 16e is actually now stuck in an awkward middle ground where it's neither a great budget option nor a compelling alternative to the iPhone 16. So, what are you actually getting for the money? And more importantly, what are you not getting? Well, the iPhone 16e is basically a part spin of the iPhone 14. Same aluminum frame, flat sides, and USB-C port, same 6.1-inch OLED display with the classic notch, same Face ID, but hey, at least you're not stuck with Touch ID like the old SEs, right? I mean, it could be a good thing for some people, but a lot of people still miss the Touch ID. But Apple did throw a few upgrades though, because you get the action button from the newer models, the IP68 water resistance, which is solid, and there's the new 48 megapixel cameras, but we'll talk about that in a second. But here's the thing, that design looks fine, but next to iPhone 16 it kinda looks outdated because the iPhone 16 has a dynamic island and brighter colors, while the iPhone 16e is stuck with just black and plain white, which I personally like, but most people might not. But like seriously, Apple, like no product red, like no fun colors, like just these two, that's a bit narrow-minded. Now, on the display, on paper, it's fine. 6.1-inch OLED, good. 800 nits brightness. 225, absolutely not. 60 Hz refresh rate, come on, Apple. I mean, I know you're going to pull this again, but why? The regular 16 goes up to 2000 nits, which is way better than in sunlight, and almost every phone at this price, now at least that we have 90 Hz or 120 Hz on most of the phones, even if you don't care about high refresh rates, it's really noticeable when you switch between a 120Hz phone and this. Now, it's just another thing that makes the iPhone 16e feel like Apple is cutting corners. Alright, now let's talk about the cameras, because Apple hyped up this new 48 megapixel camera on the iPhone 16e, and at first it sounds awesome. But there's a catch, because it's not the same 48 megapixel sensor as the iPhone 16. It's smaller, which means worse low light performance and less natural depth of field. Now, it has no optical image stabilization like the iPhone 16, and worst of all, there's no ultra wide camera. The last one stinks. Almost every Android phone at this price has at least two cameras, but Apple just gave the iPhone 16e one lonely sensor. No ultra wide, no telephoto, no macro, nothing. And if you care about video, you also lose, because you don't get cinematic mode, action mode, spatial video. Yeah, so the camera is fine, but not flagship level, and for $600 it should have been better. Okay, now let's talk about the performance, because Apple wants you to believe that the iPhone 16e has the same A18 chip as the iPhone 16, but here's the sneaky part. They cut out on one GPU core, which means that you get one less GPU core compared to the 16. CPU performance almost identical, but GPU performance almost 16% worse. For everyday stuff, you probably won't notice a difference, but if you're gaming, that extra GPU core really does matter in some circumstances. Now, will it ruin the experience? Probably not. But again, for $600, you shouldn't have to deal with these little downgrades. Okay, now let's start with the most important part, and that is the battery. Now, here's one area where the iPhone 16e actually beats the iPhone 16's battery life. The iPhone 16e has 26 hours of video playback, while the iPhone 16 has 22 hours. And thanks to Apple's new C1 modem, and it's actually Apple's first in-house modem, and it's actually way more efficient than the Qualcomm modems that they've been using. So if battery is your main priority, the iPhone 16e is actually a solid choice. But then again, Apple had to go and mess it up for the next part, which is going to be the MagSafe problem. So yeah, that's right, the iPhone 16e does not have MagSafe. Instead, you get a slow 7.5 watt cheap wireless charging, which is, I mean, questionable. So if you have MagSafe accessories, forget about it. You'll need to buy a case with MagSafe magnets built in. And even then, charging speeds are still limited. And Apple clearly did this on purpose to push people towards the iPhone 16. So, if you're gonna ask me what my final verdict is about this whole situation, so should you buy this phone? I would say if you're upgrading from an iPhone 11 or older, or just want a new iPhone for cheap, the iPhone 16e is fine. But if you care about battery life and don't mind missing out on MagSafe, a second camera, and a high refresh rate, it's okay. But if you can spend a little bit more, the iPhone 16 is a much better deal. But if you're willing to buy a refurbished phone, you can just get the iPhone 15 Pro for that same price, which absolutely destroys the iPhone 16e in every possible sense. And I'd say for the most part, it also destroys the iPhone 16 as well. So, me personally, I would go for the iPhone 15 Pro. At the end of the day, this phone feels like a trap. It exists just to make the iPhone 16 look better. So it is your choice to make which one you want. And yeah, that's been it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye.